Hello guys, welcome back. Now today, we're going to be talking about the Edmonton Oilers and what moves they make going forward. Now with the Edmonton Oilers firing their GM Peter Chiarelli, what GM ends up replacing him and what moves and trades will be made by Edmonton leading up to the trade deadline. Now, big changes are in store for the Edmonton Oilers. When they fired their GM Peter Chiarelli, we saw a little bit of a momentum shift for that whole franchise. And we got some big news on what Edmonton will do going forward and what moves they'll make. Now, with the Edmonton Oilers firing Peter Chiarelli, they need to find a quick fix to be the GM. And with that GM spot, Keith Gretzky will be the temporary GM for now, which is very, very amusing. Keith Gretzky, Wayne Gretzky's brother, being the GM currently. I don't see that lasting for too much longer, but for the Edmonton Oilers, it is funny that a Gretzky is now managing their team. Now, the guy that will be ultimately hiring the next GM for Edmonton is their vice chairman, Bob Nicholson, and he had a lot to say. He was pretty much the main guy in that whole press conference of Peter Chiarelli being fired, and he had a lot to say about Edmonton's future and what they'll do this season. Now, Bob Nicholson had quite a few quotes throughout that press conference, but the main one was this: there's something in the water here in Edmonton that we don't have right, and we need to get that figured out. Now, I don't see him talking about the actual water in Edmonton. That would be pretty weird, but if he's talking about the atmosphere and the team itself, I do get that. When he says that there's something not quite right in Edmonton, I think there's a lot of truth in those words. And with the organization, it's not just Peter Chiarelli that is making those decisions. It's guys like Cates, Bob Nicholson, Kevin Lowe. There's a lot of people in that organization that are heading the management and the decisions there. And it's not just Peter Chiarelli who has made all those dumb moves in the past. It's the upper management too. So when he says that they're trying to figure that out, when they're trying to get it fixed, that does give me quite a bit of hope that changes are coming for Edmonton, not just in the upper management, but in the mindset of that organization. And with the Edmonton Oilers, of course, getting Connor McDavid, it's always been a boys club in there, and with the mindset of the Edmonton Oilers, it's been that way for quite a long time. So if there's a mindset change on that team with all the losing that there has been recently, I think that's a pretty good thing and a very good thing going forward. But if they have learned from the mistakes in the past, if guys like Cates are a lot more patient and calm, that is a very good thing for the Edmonton Oilers, because with that team, Bob Nicholson said that they were too hasty to make decisions. They were too quick to make decisions on guys, whether it be through trading or calling up. That organization has not been the most patient one over the years, and I think the Oilers are starting to finally realize the problems that they have with the organization, the problems that they have been occurring over the last few years, and if that is something that they look inside and finally change, that could be a great thing for that organization, and we could see a lot of better things come from it. And if we are seeing that same approach when it comes to getting a new GM, I am very much for it. While a GM, it is the trade deadline. The trade deadline is coming up, so the Oilers might want to make a move before then. If the Oilers want to stay patient with this GM finding and this GM search, I wouldn't be against that, because with the Edmonton Oilers, we've seen time and time again when it comes to management, GM, or coach, or whatever, they are quick to make decisions, and most of the time, that ends up backfiring. So for me, for the Edmonton Oilers, I feel like taking their time right now is really key for them. Now, when it comes to potential GMs and the GMs that Edmonton might hire, the best one out there currently is Steve Yzerman. I don't think you could really debate that, but Steve Yzerman is not going to Edmonton anytime soon, but there are some other decent candidates that might be available for Edmonton. Now, John Shannon reports some potential GMs that might be in contention for that GM spot, and he says expect to hear names like Gillis, Hunter, McCrimmon, Fuda, and Hextall on the list for Edmonton. And those aren't some bad candidates. Personally, I would like to see maybe Fuda or Hextall out of those guys. But when it comes to Edmonton, they always have a problem of hiring guys that play with the organization or are already in the organization. And I'm hoping that they look outside of the organization to make a move here, because I think that would be the best thing that they can do right now. Now, a pretty spicy rumor comes from Russ Wylie. He works for HockeyProspect.com, but he says that he's heard some chatter from sources that the Edmonton Oilers are considering Canucks Director of Amateur Scouting, Judd Brackett, for GM. And he says that, of course, the resume of Pedersen, Demko Gaudette, Hughes, Wu, and all the prospects that have come up through the Canucks system over the last few years, that is a pretty nice resume. And honestly, for the Edmonton Oilers to go for a more, scouting GM, kind of like a Jim Benning, I feel like that that would work pretty solidly for them. And again, anything is better than a Peter Chiarelli, and Judd Brackett obviously has a very good resume on him. Being with the Canucks, they've seemed to draft well in the past few years for sure, and getting a guy like that in Edmonton could really work for that whole team. But again, it kind of baffles me that Edmonton would be looking at a smart decision when it comes to a GM. I mean, Judd Brackett doesn't have much experience, at least from what I know, in trading and all the other stuff. But when it comes to scouting, he obviously has that elite pedigree. So I would definitely like him to be in Edmonton as the GM for the Oilers. But it kind of surprises me that they're going with a smart decision there if they actually do hire Judd Brackett. But again, with the Edmonton Oilers, it looks like with their GM situation, they'll take a pretty cautious and patient approach with it, which I think is the smart decision here. Even though the trade deadline is looming and it is coming for the Edmonton Oilers, they need to make the right decision and not the fast decision like they have before. Now, whoever Edmonton ends up getting as the GM will have a pretty tough task on their hands. Right now, the Oilers have $50K in cap space. It's not a whole lot. And for the GM that will eventually be hired, getting rid of contracts like Russell, you gotta get rid of contracts like Lucic and Talbot. There's gonna be some tough decisions for the next GM for the Edmonton Oilers. And honestly, I don't pity them because it'll be a hard job to correct. And it'll be a hard job to correct all Peter Chiarelli's mistakes in the past. Now, one of the other quotes that Bob Nicholson said in the press conference was they're taking also a pretty cautious approach to the trade deadline. Whoever they get as GM will likely suit that mindset. And for the Edmonton Oilers, Bob Nicholson also said that their first round pick will not be in play. It might have been in play with Peter Chiarelli, but it doesn't look like that'll be in play any longer. And from that mindset of, he also said that he wanted to overwrite prospects in the AHL, overwrite them in the minors. So we'll likely not even see a Puljujärvi trade either. I mean, we might have seen it with Peter Chiarelli, but now with the current mindset of the Edmonton Oilers, that might not be the case anymore. But this trade deadline will be seriously crucial for the Edmonton Oilers when it comes to their future and what they might look like. This trade deadline is really going to shape that, the moves that they make, the players that they acquire, and maybe the players that they sell. In all honesty, the Edmonton Oilers have a lot of possibilities. We don't really know what they're going to do exactly, especially with Peter Chiarelli gone. So the current mindset might be completely changed at Edmonton, but I'm really excited for what they could potentially do because there are a lot of possibilities, especially with the ownership changing a lot. But for the Edmonton Oilers, they're in a very unique position right now. They're still trying to be in the playoff hunt, but right now they're at a 23-24-3 record, so that's not good enough to make the playoffs in any conference whatsoever. So for the Edmonton Oilers, it's going to be interesting to see for this trade deadline if they sell, if they buy, because right now, if they want to make the playoffs, they're just not going to get it done. Now, related to that, Bob Nicholson also said that the goal is to make the playoffs this year for the Edmonton Oilers, but they don't want to sacrifice the future to do that. So when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers and the trade deadline, it doesn't look like they'll be buying too much this trade deadline. They might actually be selling. But with the Oilers, it seems like they're all in on the team that they have right now. They're bought into the players that they have, and it seems like the team that they have now is the ones that they want to have moving forward. So for the Edmonton Oilers, there's still going to be a very interesting team in this trade deadline, but I don't see them being more buyers. I thought they were going to be buyers with Peter Chiarelli, but now with him being fired and that mindset change in Edmonton, it could be completely different. But for the Edmonton Oilers, the team realizes that this isn't good enough. The management realizes that the team is not good enough. So whether they'll be buying or selling, that it will be an interesting story to tell. But with this team, I still think there are big changes coming in the management group and in the team. It might not happen this trade deadline, but in the offseason, we could see some big moves come from the Oilers just because of that simple mindset change. But if Peter Chiarelli was still GM going into the trade deadline, we might have seen them go after guys like Wayne Simmons, maybe go after a couple more wingers that were expensive at this trade deadline. But to me, I feel like we're seeing a lot more cautious approach with the team in general, the GM search, with the trades and the moves that they make. I feel like they're going to be a lot more careful this time around. And with the Edmonton Oilers, that simple mindset change is going to go a long way to helping the team and helping the atmosphere of that organization. Now, the Edmonton Oilers are my 8th favorite team in the NHL, and I like cheering for them quite a lot. And this atmosphere change and this mindset change, and with Peter Chiarelli being fired, I have optimism with the Edmonton Oilers, and that's something that they haven't had for a couple of years. And this year I expected them to be decent, but I didn't expect them to make the playoffs. But with this mindset change that the Oilers have, with the management possibly getting a lot more patient and a lot more better, we can see the Edmonton Oilers maybe make the playoffs a couple of times, and hopefully they get a lot better. And with that current team in the Edmonton Oilers, they're flawed, but they still have potential. So while I'm not 100% sold on them going forward, I have a lot more optimism than I did with Peter Chiarelli still as the GM. But for the Edmonton Oilers, I'm still not 100% sold on the management. Again, when it comes to the management, they made some terrible moves in the past. They've burned me quite a few times, so I'll see it, I'll believe it when I see it, and for the trade deadline, I'm hoping that they stay patient. For the GM search, I'm hoping that they stay patient with that. But with the current mindset, it looks like it's changing in the Edmonton Oilers, and that's something that we haven't seen for quite a long time. So I am optimistic, but I will believe it when I see it. But for the Edmonton Oilers, whatever moves they may make at the trade deadline, whatever moves they may make through the GM, it seems like the organization is a lot more smart and a lot more careful this time around, which gives me a lot of optimism for Edmonton going forward. But with this video, I want to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments down below. So let me know, what do you think about the moves Edmonton might make? Who do you think they'll hire as a GM? Who will be the next GM? And what moves do you see them making around the trade deadline? But if you guys want some more grad videos just like this one, you can watch this video where I talk about the Edmonton Oilers and them firing their GM, Peter Chiarelli. But that is going for today, guys. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. You can comment down below your thoughts on the Edmonton Oilers and what moves they'll make going forward. And I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Goodbye.